All right, so let's dive into a story about a legendary Hollywood party. That went very, very wrong. It all happened over Labor Day weekend back in 1921.
Yeah, and it really shows how a beloved figure can have their life completely flipped upside down, especially when they're, facing public scrutiny and a media that loves a good scandal.
Yeah, and we're talking about Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. This guy, he was at the top of his game comedically. Think Charlie Chaplin, but with a scandal so big it basically wiped him off the map.
And the place for all this was the luxurious St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. Arbuckle rented out like a whole suite of rooms, and it was, by all accounts, a total roaring 20s bash.
You know, it was wild. I mean, bootleg, booze galore, music, dancing, all the flappers. It sounded like something straight out of a movie.
Well, speaking of movies, the guest list, it was like a who's who of Hollywood. You had actors, actresses, and even, get this, a nightgowned salesman named Ira Fortloy.
Because why not?
Exactly. But there were also some, let's just say, interesting characters like Maud Delmont.
Yeah.
She was known for, well, how to put this delicately, using information to her advantage.
Maud Delmont. Yeah, she becomes a pretty central figure in all of this. Let's just say she was resourceful. But before we get into her role in all this, we got to talk about Virginia Rappe.
Yeah, Virginia Rappe, she was a young actress trying to, make it in Hollywood. Sadly, going to that party ended up being a tragic turning point for her.
It's really sad to think about. So picture this, okay?
Hmm.
The party's going strong. Everyone's having a blast. People are doing high kicks, laughing. Delmont is even wearing Lowell Sherman's pajamas for some reason.
Yeah.
And Arbuckle, he's about to leave to drive a friend, Mantaub, into town.
Yeah.
But that's when he finds Rappe. She's in one of the bathrooms, and it's clear she's in distress.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where things get murky. Was Arbuckle just checking on a guest who'd maybe had a little too much to drink, or was there something more to it?
Right. And so he tries to help her. He brings her some water, he puts her on the bed, but something's clearly wrong. I mean, she's moaning, she's in pain. She even rolls off the bed at one point.
And then there's the whole thing with the ice. Arbuckle used ice on Rappe, maybe to, soothe her, maybe to see if she was faking. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that ice. That became a huge deal during the trial. There are all sorts of theories about what that ice meant and where it was used.
Definitely added fuel to the fire. And then Maud Delmont shows up. And things take a real turn. At first, they figure Rappe is just drunk, which, let's be honest, wouldn't have been that unusual at a party like this. But then Rappe starts screaming, tearing at her clothes, and she accuses Arbuckle.
And to make things even crazier, another guest, this guy Fishbach, he chimes in with a comment about Arbuckle having fun with Rappe. And that, of course, could be interpreted in so many different ways.
It was chaos. People were coming and going. There's music, laughter, flowing alcohol. It makes it almost impossible to really know what happened.
So they're trying to calm Rappe down. They give her a cold bath, move her to another room. Arbuckle even calls the hotel manager and gets a doctor. And the doctor's initial diagnosis, too much booze.
Which, given the amount of drinking going on, probably seemed plausible at the time. But obviously, as we know, it was a lot more serious than that.
Yeah, and this is where it gets, well, even darker. Even with all this happening, the party keeps going. I mean, can you believe that? Eventually, Arbuckle leaves, but
Yeah.
Rappe's condition just gets worse.
So the next day, a different doctor shows up, this guy, Dr. Beardsley. He treats her with morphine. And then Delmont, she calls another doctor, Dr. Rumwell. And this time, she makes a serious accusation. She says Arbuckle assaulted Rappe.
And boom. Just like that, the whole scandal explodes. I mean, it spreads like wildfire.
And that's how this beloved comedian went from being the life of the party to being at the center of a massive scandal. And we haven't even gotten to the trial yet, so you can't really grasp. I mean, the media frenzy, I mean, think about it. No social media, no internet, but it was in all the newspapers. It was everywhere.
It was the golden age of, like, tabloid journalism, right? And this was the story everyone was talking about.
And, at the center of all of it was a real tragedy. Virginia Rappe died just a few days after the party. The cause, peritonitis, and that stemmed from a ruptured bladder.
That ruptured bladder, that became the whole mystery, the million-dollar question. What caused it?
Right, and the prosecution, well, they jumped right on it. They said Arbuckle assaulted her, and that's what caused the injury.
I can't even imagine. I mean, this guy was at the top, and then boom, he's public enemy number one. It's a reminder of how quickly public opinion can change, right?
Absolutely. The trial, it was a total spectacle. It was like a courtroom drama playing out for the whole country to see.
It was. You had the prosecution, led by San Francisco DA Matthew Brady. He was out for blood, basically.
He wanted to make Arbuckle an example, no doubt.
And on the other side, you had Gavin McNabb. He was a top defense attorney, known for representing Hollywood types. He was Arbuckle's only hope.
And don't forget Maud Delmont. She was a key witness for the prosecution.
But you said earlier, her story didn't really add up, right?
There were some holes in her story, for sure. And the defense was ready to pounce on those.
So you had these two sides going back and forth, trying to convince the jury. It must have been intense.
Oh, absolutely. Legal chess match. And then you had another actress, Zay Pravon. She was at the party, too. The prosecution put a lot of pressure on her to back up their story, even threatened her with perjury if she didn't play ball.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a good example of how witness testimony can be, well, influenced, especially in these big cases.
That first trial, it was a close one. It ended with a hung jury, 10-2 in favor of acquittal. Can you believe that? One juror held out, Helen Hurd. Apparently, she'd made up her mind that Arbuckle was guilty before the trial even started.
Wow, talk about bias. I mean, that just shows you how personal feelings can get in the way, even in the legal system.
So second trial rolls around, and the defense team, they made a big decision. They decided not to have Arbuckle testify. They figured the prosecution's case was weak enough to crumble on its own.
A risky move?
It was. And it backfired. The jury voted 10-2 to convict.
Ouch.
Yeah, a big blow for Arbuckle and his team. But then, the third trial, this is where it all came to a head. Arbuckle took the stand, denied everything, pleaded his case directly to the jury.
High stakes.
Definitely. And here's the crazy part. The prosecution, they brought in Virginia Rappe's actual bladder as evidence.
They did what?
Yeah, like the actual organ.
Wow. That's pretty out there.
I know. They were trying to shock the jury, basically.
Yeah.
They argued that the damage to the bladder proved their assault theory.
Bold move.
But remember Zay Pravon, the actress? Well, by the third trial, she'd skipped town, which is a huge problem for the prosecution.
Yeah, that hurt their case for sure.
And the defense, they brought in their own medical experts who said the bladder rupture could have been from all sorts of things, not just an assault. They poked holes in the prosecution's whole story.
So it was a real showdown.
Oh, yeah. And everyone's waiting on the jury, right? What's the verdict going to be?
Yeah.
And, the jury, they not only acquitted Arbuckle, they actually gave him a statement, an apology.
Really?
Yeah. They said a great injustice has been done him. There was not the slightest proof adduced to connect him in any way with the commission of a crime.
Well, it's pretty clear they believed he was innocent.
They did. But even with that, his career, his reputation, it was all pretty much destroyed.
Yeah, he was blacklisted, his films were pulled, and he was in debt up to his eyeballs from all the legal fees. It's hard to come back from that.
But the big question, even after all that, was still there. What really happened to Virginia Rappe?
Ah, yes. The mystery remains.
So, Arbuckle's acquitted. The jury says, hey, sorry for the trouble, but his life is a mess.
Yeah, totally ostracized in Hollywood, owes a fortune to his lawyers, lost his house, his cars, everything. The ban on his films was eventually lifted, but, the damage was done. Hard to bounce back from that.
But he did try to, rebuild his life, right?
He did, yeah. He started directing under this fake name, William B. Goodrich. Kind of ironic, right?
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But having to use a fake name, it must have been rough.
Yeah, imagine that. Your work's getting recognized, but you can't even take credit for it. But he also went back to the stage, did vaudeville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it sounds like audiences really loved him. They appreciated his talent.
It's good. It's good he found some of that, He even remarried, right?
He did, actually, twice. First to Doris Dean, and then later to Addie McPhail. But the scandal, it never really went away.
And then, just when it seemed like he was on the verge of a real comeback, Warner Brothers offered him a feature film contract.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Right, a chance to get back on top.
Yeah, finally catch a break. But sadly, that's when it all ended. He died of a heart attack.
No kidding.
Yeah, only 46 years old, right when he was about to get back to making movies.
What a story.
Yeah.
It's almost like the pressure, the stress, it all just got to him.
Yeah, and Buster Keaton, his friend, he said Arbuckle basically died of a broken heart. And it's hard to disagree.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how the public, the media, they can really impact a person's life.
For sure. And it leaves us with so many questions, right? What actually happened that night? Was Arbuckle just, a victim of circumstance caught up in a web of lies? Or is there something more to the story?
There were those rumors about Virginia Rappe maybe having had an abortion, an illegal one, that went wrong.
Yeah, and there was that comment she allegedly made at the party about needing money for an abortion. But you gotta remember, back then, illegal abortions, they were dangerous, secretive. It's another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
And then there's the fact that some of Rappe's organs, like her uterus, were removed after the autopsy and destroyed. It makes you think, maybe someone was trying to cover something up.
Yeah, definitely adds to the mystery. And, some medical experts, they've said that Rappe's peritonitis, it might have been caused by an existing infection, maybe made worse by alcohol.
Ah, so her bladder could have been weak already.
Exactly. It might have been more prone to rupture even without an assault.
Right.
There's even a theory that Arbuckle might have accidentally hurt Rappe during the party. Maybe she tickled him, he jerked his knee up, something like that.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but at a party that wild, I guess anything's possible.
Right. It just shows you how even something small can have, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, we might never really know what happened. The Arbuckle scandal, it's one of those Hollywood mysteries that never really goes away.
Yeah.
Fame, misfortune, unanswered questions. It's got it all. It makes you think about how we see things, how accusations can have so much power, and how hard it can be to find the truth.
It's a reminder that Hollywood, behind all the glamour, is full of these human stories with twists and turns and loose ends.
Exactly. The Arbuckle case, it's a glimpse into a dark side of Hollywood history. It leaves you thinking about how fragile fame can be and how a scandal can stick with you forever.
Well, that was a heavy one, but fascinating for sure. Thanks for diving into this with me.
My pleasure. Always up for a good mystery.